Welcome, everyone. I'm Elizabeth George, Director of Member Engagement and Chapter Development with the American Guild of Organists. And I'm so pleased that you could join us today for our next in our series of leadership webinars, the benefits and challenges of serving as Dean. This is a very thought-provoking topic, and we really want this webinar to be interactive today. So I encourage you, as you have questions, for our three panelists, that you use the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen, to post any comments or questions. And I will be moderating this throughout the presentation. As well, this is going to be recorded, as all of our AGO webinars are, and we'll have handouts with it, and it will be uploaded underneath the Education tab by Monday. We have a subpage there called Past AGO Webinars and Supporting Documents. So we have three wonderful, wonderful people with us today. I'd say just about everybody here has sat where you are sitting, has walked in your shoes, and knows what it's like to serve as a dean or serve in a leadership position. We have Sue Mitchell-Wallace, who is the Southeast Regional Councillor. We have Skye Hart, who is our West Regional Councillor, and Karl Bruhn, who is the past Regional Councillor for the Great Lakes. And Karl, I'm gonna ask you to kick this off, so please.
Yeah, I'm very honored to be part of this group because this is just a neat bunch of people to work with. I've got a couple opening comments and then I'll follow the guidelines that Elizabeth set up for us. If you walk away from today's event with one or two good ideas, I think the meeting is worthwhile. I was a teacher for many years, and you'd sit through faculty meetings or district meetings and stuff. And after about 20 years of these, I used to think if I have one good idea, it was worthwhile. Second, I had an aunt, Aunt Alice, who was a hippie. And she was a wild and crazy lady, and everybody loved her or couldn't stand her. My mother hated her because she was so unorthodox. But one of her sayings that she had that was great was, if you have $1 and I have $1 and we exchange dollars, you have $1 and I have $1. But if you have an idea and I have an idea and we exchange ideas, we both have two ideas. So that was my Aunt Alice, and paid tribute to her today. Okay. Sue has asked me to speak on several of these topics. The first one is a delicate balance between leading and managing, or listen, but have plan A and plan B ready just in case. There's a delicate balance between leading and managing, but with some thought and conversations, it's possible for me or you to bring folks on board with many of your or my ideas. I had to put my goals out there on the table many times and share with chapter leaders what these goals were and ask for their ideas. And by combining our ideas together, this is what happened pretty well. In addition to sharing ideas at meetings, I used to enjoy taking chapter leaders, individuals or small groups out for lunch or supper and discuss, especially if they seemed like he or she had a problem and needed to be convinced of the plan. I enjoyed working closely with my program chair people, programs that would drive the AGO. You probably all know that. So if you have questions, send them to Elizabeth and I can address them. Topic number 2 she gave me is the art of listening and diplomacy. Listening and listening and listening is so important. Be available to listen to members and perhaps clergy folks when they have a problem. And sometimes you're gonna have to listen late at night or early in the morning or whatever it is. It takes time to do that, but it's worthwhile. Somebody really is interested, I have a really good story for you about the Quincy, Illinois chapter from several years ago. We really hit a snag, and I think we've worked the problem out by listening carefully. The ability to motivate others is so important. How do you do it? Listen to your members, make them feel important, and ask them to write down and list ideas for you. And then you can recognize our ideas, even if they're a bit out there. And some of those great out there ideas are wonderful. Then combine the ideas to get together. I think a chapter dean, this is really important to me, is really a kind of cheerleader for what happens in the chapter. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world, but you have to be a cheerleader. Also, I needed to listen to others. I've always thought it was important to plant seeds or ideas in other folks' heads and give the ideas time to mature, sometimes a month, a year, whatever it takes. Then give credit to the folks who nourished those ideas, yours or others. I do not want or need to get credit for these ideas, but give credit to the other people who thought they really came up with these ideas when a project like a program like theirs turns out well. Let your chapter leaders shine, all of them. It makes them feel like they are an important part for the team. So there's 3. I got a couple more to go here and then I'll be quiet and listen to everybody else. Number 3, the importance of supporting, nourishing, and recognizing members. Recognizing strengths and weaknesses is important, and assigning tasks is important. People feel honored to be asked to do things. Start with small things, a one-time task, and then you can work your way up to some bigger tasks. Also, this is a huge thing. Send out thank you notes, handwritten if possible, and or emails, but don't let things go by. Support your members, nourish and recognize them. Recognizing strengths and weaknesses of current officers. There are always those folks out there who want to be out front and visible, and others who are worker bees. Thank goodness we've got both. Hopefully every chapter member has folks like you recognize their strengths and use their strengths to improve the chapter. Some folks are great performers. Use them when you can. Others are great at taking care of refreshments and parties and would rather not play on a program, even if they're asked, but they just don't want to do it. No problem, we can give them a task. Others are great with PR or mailing programs or invitations or licking envelopes or putting stamps on or things like that. Or welcoming folks to programs. It's very important. You need to have a really good person that's out in front and welcoming people to the programs. I can't stand it when there's like signs out there and you can't find where the meeting is, which has happened to me a bunch of times because I snoop and attend people's meetings. Ask for volunteers from your board or from your members. Ask them, be specific. Don't just say, anybody out there want to do this? You know, be specific. We need somebody to do this task. Okay, number 4, the ability to motivate, recognize new ideas, and serve as a cheerleader. You can do this. We can do this together. Goal setting is important, yet it's challenging. Set your goals. If you don't get them all at once or in 1 year, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Some goals take 2 or 3 or 4 years to achieve, but they are achievable probably all the time. When I became dean of the chapter, one of my goals was to have 100 people attend our annual dinner meeting, okay? Previous to that, if we had 30, everybody thought, wow, that was great. Well, that was one of my goals. And I said, we're going to do this. And we did. We made dinners. We had a catered dinner for $15. It cost $30. The chapter subsidized it. We had short business meetings and we had great programs. And we're out the door in 2.5 hours after all of that. And people had a great time. Compliment your officers and any committee people publicly and often. Write notes, emails, thank folks for the service to your chapter in the AGO and share the spotlight with other people. You don't have to get all of the glory. Where to go when you're stuck? Well, there's a lot of people you can go to, and most of us have been stuck at some time or another. For example, Elizabeth, she's she can find the answer to almost anything. And if she can't, James Thomas Howard probably can. Or Molly or Leah, or use the state or district conveners. In the Great Lakes states, we're lucky because we have one convener per state because our chapters are all kind of close and we have pretty good membership. Number 5, strive to exceed expectations. This is one of the things that just drives me nuts. Exceed expectations in everything you do, everything, in signage, in printed programs. Welcome persons at the door. I was at a meeting about 2 years ago in a church that had printed programs, but the program type was so small, it was barely readable, which was inexcusable. And then they printed it on blue paper and you couldn't read it. And I gently, but I chided the people who were in charge of that program. I go, this is not inviting to other people. Okay, getting close to the end. The importance of working as a team to identify goals and work towards achieving them. How do you gain consensus? That's an important thing. What kind of programs are out there? We are all or should be working toward common goal or goals, which is, and then you determine which goal it is now or this for this year, this fall, whatever. If someone disagrees with others, listen and see if they can help you and together can come up with a plan. I could give you an example later if you want to send me an email about the Indianapolis convention that we did, which had a major blockage. People on the committee just were stuck as to what to do, but through some good thinking and guidance from above, we were able to work our way through that thing. Team building in your chapter. Team building is important. You can start with small things like a pedals, pipes, and pizzas. People all like those. They invite kids. You can do a pedals, pipes, and pizza with 4 people or 6 or 8 or 10. Or if you want to have multiple organs that you take the people out to, and you can do it with 10 or 15 or 20. But that's a way with a small amount of work for everybody involved. You can do that. So that's part of building consensus. Do a January Jubilee. I've done a couple of them and I've been part of 6 of them. And they're great for building teamwork within your chapter, okay? Or do a pipe organ encounter, or a pipe organ encounter plus. Those take some people, but they work and your chapter is better off and stronger. You have a really good esprit de corps when you're done with any of those kind of things. Or if you really want to challenge, do a regional or a national convention. Those things are great. And some of my best friends are from the one, we did a national convention in Chicago back in 2006. And some of my best friends for life are people that I met and I didn't have any idea who they were before we worked together on the convention. 2 more, recognizing your officer's strengths and weaknesses. The importance of having an excellent nominating committee is so important here. The committee needs to know what your ideas are for looking for, and don't just get some live body that's going to sit there and be on the committee. You know, go after, target specific people to be whatever you need them to be. Okay, last one. Importance of strength of how to strong programming will strengthen your membership. Strong programming is hugely important. It's you can hear the phone ringing, it's a political call. I strongly suggest monthly programs for the larger chapters if you can. Yeah, we already voted, that's okay. For smaller chapters, maybe quarterly programs. Keep some programs annual if you can, like organ crawls with really good lunches at restaurants that attracts people. Members concerts. Oh, I never call them recitals. And the reason I don't call them recitals is because newspapers couldn't care less about having a recital in the program. If you say concert, you're going to get more coverage in newspapers. That's something I learned from a newspaper person a long time ago, and it's stuck with me since. Children give piano recitals for their grandparents, but organists should give organ concerts. Okay, that's one of my hypes, okay? Holiday gatherings important. Major recitalists, and if you can, include some of the younger players from your region. They love to be invited. They get publicity and all of those kinds of things, and that's great. So I can go on and on and on, and later on, if we run out of time, I can talk to you about refreshments and other such things, because I love to be in my soapbox, but I don't want to keep going too long. So if you have questions, please send them to Elizabeth, and then I can address them later. And Elizabeth, enough for now. Hope I haven't put everybody to sleep, but
no, you haven't.
You got one good idea out of it, and my Aunt Alice would be proud.
No, you have lots of good points. I think listening is so important. Gaining consensus, working towards a goal so that you feel like there's a team. And you know, there's no I in team then, because everybody's working together. And those are so important. And I love your ideas about just throwing great ideas out there. We used to call, when we'd have chapter retreats in the association that I previously worked for, we'd have what we call blue sky thinking, where you'd throw big ideas out there. And then from that, but it was creative. Everybody had an opportunity. There were no bad ideas, but from that, then you narrowed them down and said, okay, is this realistic? Do we really think we're going to be able to accomplish this? Okay, let's select some of these and move forward. But so I really loved those ideas. And the fact of, I think that's so important is recognizing the strengths and weaknesses that you have on your board and how they can complement each other. I don't know if anybody ever remembers reading a book. I think it was published maybe, could have been, oh gosh, 7 or 8 years ago, called A Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. And she wrote about the cabinet that President Lincoln put together. And they all had never worked together. They were of different parties. Many of them didn't like each other, but he wanted that diversity. And I think sometimes it's okay if you have people that don't agree, as long as you can you can respect their opinions and yet come to consensus. So I think so much of what you've said is so valid and so important, Karl. And I don't see any questions here yet, but Skye or Sue, any comments that you want to share with what he said?
Ditto.
Okay, I do have a hand raised. Okay, Sylvia, you have to type your question. Can you type it into the Q&A box? We'd be happy to answer your question, but you need to type it into the Q&A. Okay, well, we're going to continue. And when Sylvia has finished typing her question, we'll make sure that we get it answered. So Sue, I'm going to turn this over to you.
I would like to say that when I became regional counselor, Karl was such a wonderful mentor to me. And you can see with his wealth of experience and ideas and love of people, he was a great friend and teacher. So thank you, Karl, for all that you do. We were talking as a team before this webinar began, and I shared a comment with them that has kind of become my 2020 philosophy, and that is that when you have a minus sign, you can let God's perpendicular come down and make plus signs out of that minus. Well, I thank God for creating someone who invented Zoom. And I thank God for finding ways to keep us together as musicians, as colleagues in the community arts system. I've had a chance to visit chapters virtually and to listen to concerts that I never would have had before COVID. And so along with the discomfort and the pain and the sorrow, we've had glimpses of beauty that we never would have thought about. And I recently sent a questionnaire out to the deans in the Southeast region. And I was so touched by what the deans responded as to the pleasures of their job as being dean. And I would say in 80% of the responses, they got the biggest thrill out of sharing a mutual love of the instrument with young people and new members. And some of the most rewarding events, as Karl mentioned, around pedals, pipes, and pizzas and POEs, but also having individual chapter scholarships and individual chapter recitals for young people and members recitals and sharing the gifts that you have in your own community. And I would like to share some of the other comments that came. Some of the deans mentioned that they felt a particular challenge during this time of COVID because they have high risk members who, if you could have an in-person socially distanced recital, they still would be hesitant to come. And then again, some of our members in smaller towns and cities do not have the opportunity to have the internet strength to have successful Zoom meetings. And some of our folks are not comfortable using technology. Well, that's a minus, there's no doubt about it. But there are ways to make plus signs out of that by having contact with those folks through personal phone calls. Even though we're missing the body language of one another, we still can hear the inflection of the voice, and we still can share news and share interests with one another. And we also can take time to write personal letters and notes. And this does not have to fall on one person of the chapter. This is a great opportunity to bring people together. And for those who cannot partake of our virtual recitals and programs, if there's a way to make CDs of those programs and share them with our members who might have CD players at their homes, but they might not have a way to get onto Zoom, any way that we can possibly reach out in a one-to-one way, there's nothing that can ever take the place of one-on-one. A lot of our leadership, deans and secretaries, treasurers, mentioned a little bit of confusion with renewal of dues and on-card and technical issues. And I actually am producing a handout that collaborates some of the challenges that deans are having with some of the solutions that are on the website, and more to come. The AGO has recently employed a digital technology expert, and I think you're going to see a great improvement on the national website. I think there are going to be some technical webinars that Elizabeth is putting together that will help with on-card. And I would urge you, even though the membership now is rotating, we used to have renewal of memberships in the summertime. Now it's all year. But this would be a great way to highlight different members of your chapter. As their memberships come due, maybe highlight them in your newsletter and give them a chance to be better known by your whole chapter.
So I do have some questions here. One was, how many events or how often should a chapter host or sponsor events, monthly, quarterly, or frequently? As COVID-19 returns for the third wave, it seems we should consider more virtual programs, recitals, and education programs.
Did you want me to answer that? Or?
I mean,
okay.
Please do.
You all join me, Skye and Karl, but I have heard of some chapters who are having weekly get-togethers. Maybe they share a meal and they visit as though they were going out to lunch, but they eat lunch at their respective desks or dining room tables, but share a time of conversation. I don't think you can get together too much because we're so disparate right now. And we do miss that interaction and the sharing of news and views. And maybe you could host a watch party for a recital and make comments. And maybe have a round robin discussion. I just have added to my library some books that I'm now having a little more time to read, and maybe you could share books and share resources. Any other ideas, Skye and Karl?
Yeah, I would say absolutely try to stay engaged. You know, even now, you know, when we're having the challenges of trying to navigate, you know, not being able to meet in person. I mean, we have some wonderful resources. I mean, Elizabeth has put up some wonderful resources online. AGO National website. If nothing else, make it a monthly chapter event that you send out to chapter, you invite them, you send a link to, you know, watch a particular concert program or a particular workshop. I think that's wonderful. The chapters are meeting once a week. Even, you know, socializing is very important too. Because sometimes we think that your programming has to be just a concert or just a workshop. I mean, it could be something as simple as just getting people together, you know, to be able to just have more casual exchange of, I mean, that's a great way to network and meet people. So yeah, I would say at the very least, you know, aim for once a month, you know, because that way you're making your presence known. My fear you appear within that you get forgotten about. So I would say try to reach out, try something once a month. And if you're struggling with ideas, contact any of us, because there really are a lot of resources available. And don't be afraid to collaborate with others, which will be one of the topics I'll be talking about in a minute. So
definitely, Karl.
In Illinois right now, nobody's doing anything with anybody because the death rate and everything is so high. They've closed all the restaurants in Illinois as of today, and it's just really too bad. But if and when this pandemic is over, our chapter did something kind of fun a couple years ago, and it turned out to be a really great social event and things like this. We call it a Bach and a Brew, and we'd made it some pub every other month and sing a couple Bach chorales or something, and then have a good beer. And it appealed particularly to the younger members, but it worked. And the people in the pub wherever we were always amazed that we could drink a beer and sing so well. But it was a get together, that had no big plans or anything like that. Just pass out the music and sing, and
chapters fun. I've been hearing chapters prior to the pandemic were doing meetups. They were just saying, hey, we're going to meet at a happy hour somewhere. Let's get together, and this will be purely social. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you may ask someone to bring a non-member. You may end up recruiting people. You just don't know. But as long as you're staying connected, I think it's so important. And even if, as Sue said, you're getting together on Zoom once a week to have a lunch together, or a coffee hour once a month, or a happy hour once a month.
Happy hour.
There you go.
Happy hours.
Yeah. The Sacramento chapter does that monthly. And I'm so tempted to join them, but their happy hour is 3 hours after my happy hour. So I'm usually not awake at that hour, but there's just so much out there that can be joined. We can all help each other. And so I think that's it for the current questions. Sue, did you have anything more that you wanted to continue with? I'm sorry I interrupted you, but.
No, that's what this is about. People are seeking information, and hopefully we're sharing some ideas that will inspire them. One of the things that came through from some of my deans in the Southeast, or some of our deans in the Southeast, was ways and ideas to maintain officer accountability if they have a job to do. And this comes from smaller chapters where we all understand that there maybe are 20 or 30 members, and so the revolving door for leadership can get to be fatiguing, and ways to build up the apathy that members get. And I would say not only apathy, but literally burnout, because most of these folks have jobs on top of serving the AGO. And some of our deans have served 3 or even 4 times. So I again salute Elizabeth's leadership and some of the committees for jumping into the maelstrom with all these wonderful webinars and resources and ideas that are available. And on the handout that I'm preparing, I'll try to match up some of the challenges for the chapter deans that I perceived from their responses with ways to help find solutions or creative ways to handle the situation that we're now in.
And burnt out is it's a serious one, particularly within the smaller chapters. Mm-hmm. But we did talk last week when we had our Keeping Chapters Healthy during the time of COVID-19. They talked about building a leadership pipeline. And there's a document and a handout on our website that talks about that. And it's taking small steps in the beginning, but in the end, I think it can help those not feeling like they're serving for life. Yeah. Because we don't want that. We definitely don't want that.
And it's a challenge in reverse too, because large chapters You only have so many people who can serve as officers. The Guild is moving into the use of members at large, which I think is wonderful. But you also, as chapter deans, can set up ad hoc committees. And I have found that not only those of us who are playing all the time have to do the work, because there are gifted people in my parish, gifted people in internet technology, gifted people in graphic design, gifted people in marketing. They love the organ, and this is a way that they can contribute to the cultural life of our organization as well as other organizations, and make it inviting for those folks to share their gifts. Just because they don't play the organ doesn't mean that they can't be great cheerleaders for us.
Absolutely, that is so true, and bring their special skills to enhance what the chapter is attempting to do. So that's great. And we did get a question about where we can find the online programming. And if there is time at the end, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and show you again where they are. And then Ted Walter said, this is a question, not a question, but a comment. If not for the AGO webinars and education programs, many of us would not have a way to stay current with our art and craft. I intend to continue to promote the AGO website to my members. I think it would be helpful to have a tab by tab outline of what's available so that we can share it with our membership. I agree. And as Sue referenced, we do have a new Chief Technology Officer. And we were just on a staff call yesterday about a new design for our website, which will make things so much easier to find. You won't feel like you're on a treasure hunt looking for things and then finally just throwing your hands up in frustration. So I'm very excited about this. I still discover new things on our website that I had no idea that were there. So, but if we have time, oh, I've got a hooray, thank you. What we'll do is at the end, we can definitely go onto the website and I'll show everybody where the programming is. And I guess we will turn it on over to Skye.
All right, well, thank you so much. And we've already covered a lot of wonderful material here. So Elizabeth's going to share also screen share the handout that I made, and here we go. And sometimes it's helpful having a visual. I have three particular areas that I would like to focus on today. And these are useful strategies for deans, but I think they'd be very helpful for sub-deans, who are in charge usually of chapter programming, and anybody who serves in a leadership capacity on your chapter level. So my first topic is, when in doubt, collaborate. This is a great time, especially in this year of dealing with COVID and all the crazy things. Think outside of your chapter. So what I mean by this is that when you are putting together your program year, don't only consider the members that are in your chapter itself, but also consider the membership at large. So consider the general public, right? Because this is a way that we can reach people with our art. It's also a great way to recruit new members, which we'll talk about in a moment. One of the things that have been very helpful for me when I served as dean was to team up with groups that overlap with the AGO for certain events, workshops, educational programs. We did some, I know that we mentioned earlier the January Jubilee, which is a wonderful event to pull off for your chapter. For example, if your chapter is maybe not so keen about trying to pull off an entire convention, your January Jubilee is very, very doable if you have a core of dedicated volunteers. We also, when I was dean, we collaborated with CMA, HMA for handbells, and put on a day-long program of workshops that were geared towards people who were kind of beginning level church musicians, or just trying to tighten up skills in certain areas. And that went extremely well. So I think collaboration is the way of the future. People may not show up just for an AGO event, but if you're doing an event that has organ and choral workshops, choral reading sessions, and handbells and things like that, you're going to get a lot more people showing up. And I will say that when we've done those events, we've gotten quite a few people who attended who end up becoming chapter members afterwards. So that was really successful. Co-sponsor organ-related concerts with other established concert series. So if you are struggling to come up with programming on your own as a chapter, and I know many chapters already do this, a great way to be able to bring in fantastic artists is to work with other established concert series and then have your chapter co-sponsor these concerts. So that's actually much of the programming that we did when I was dean of the Central Arizona chapter, and is still the case today. We would collaborate with Arizona State University. There were several prominent churches in the Valley that had large and well-attended concert programs. You're getting a built-in audience. You're getting to pool your resources with theirs. Your chapter may not be able to fly an Olivier Latry only with your own budget, but teaming up with another church or another concert series, absolutely you could. And we were talking about the frequency of events. And this is a great way to keep these events coming more frequently is collab. Plus you also have the advantage of advertising that these other groups are using as well. So again, you're trying to reach a larger audience. The benefits of collaboration, which we've talked about a little bit, more resources are available. You have more time, more money, more advertising, more hands on deck, right? You will reach a wider audience. And some of these audience members are prime candidates for AGO membership. So I think that's a big thing to think about. Also, another point of collaboration that I didn't list here is collaboration between AGO chapters. If you feel like your chapter is struggling to come up with programming ideas, say if you're a smaller chapter, for example, and I do hear this a lot, absolutely team up with a neighbor chapter. I mean, nowadays, especially with virtual programming, I mean, you could team up with a chapter that's not even in your region. We really can think outside the box. And I think that's the really exciting thing that's happening in 2020, that we have the capacity to reach an audience that we've never been able to reach before. So I think that's really cool. And I think it's important to stay focused on that positive aspect. Okay, so we will scroll down a little bit further, please. Thank you. My second topic, start them while they're young, chapter scholarship programs. So this was a big deal for me. Youth are the future of the organ. And if we want this art that we love so much to stick around, we absolutely need to promote organ studies. So without organ students, there will be no AGO. So not to sound grim, but it's just you have to plant that seed. And I think that's one of the most essential functions of the AGO in general and on the chapter level. If your chapter doesn't have a scholarship fund, start one. Some chapters already do have scholarship funds, and they just the money is just kind of sitting there. Start putting it to use. Start offering talented budding musicians organ scholarships. This is a great way to recruit them to your chapter, get them involved. Scholarship also makes use of your excellent organ teachers that you may have in your chapter. So what we did when I was dean here in our chapter, and we had a scholarship program already established, and I started pushing it more heavily during my tenure, was that you would have talented young high schoolers would come in, they would audition, then if they passed the audition successfully, they would be given the opportunity to take lessons with one of our designated organ teachers. So anybody in our chapter who volunteered to do that. Again, if you are not sure, if you have teachers in your chapter, we have digital options now. A lot of people are, in fact, doing digital instructions. So that's something to consider. The hosting a POE, which I know Karl talked about a little bit, and offering scholarships to students to attend one in your region. So, so many of the most bright and talented young concert organists that we have today all started at a POE or a pipes, pedals, and pizza type event. So I think it's really, really cool. Hosting POE in my chapter was probably one of the most gratifying things I did during my whole time. So we had all these kids come in, not just from our region, but from other regions as well. And being able to help them fall in love with this instrument was so exciting. So it's something to really, even if you are not able to host one, consider being able to support other POEs by offering scholarships. Okay, point number 4. But wait, it's 2020. The apocalypse has taken place and we can't do in-person events. What do we do? And so we did talk about this, but go digital. Virtual organ demonstration. So don't feel like it has to be some big day-long thing. Start small, actually. Organ demonstrations, organ calls, organ instruction, all of this can be done virtually. Distance is no longer an obstacle. If you know an excellent presenter who, say you're in Washington State, a wonderful presenter from New York City, hey, this is the time to embrace all of this digital technology. And that person from New York can put on a wonderful workshop, engage the kids and your other chapter members in a wonderful program, and nobody has to leave their own home. So I think that's actually a really neat thing. 5 is host chapter programs to help raise money for awareness and for scholarships. So this could be a members, I should call it members concert. Sorry, Karl, I have recitals down here. It's an old, hard to break old habits. But having some, member programs where people show up. I know what we did here in our chapter, and we still do, is basically a members recital, but the chapter scholarship students also participate. And we would get really good response, particularly if we were playing in churches with lots of older members. I think they were just so excited to see young kids show up and play the organ. We got some really great gifts from people too. So that's something to consider. Okay, and then my third and final point is power in numbers. So this is membership development. And first of all, use every event as an opportunity to recruit. So you can do this officially by having AGO literature available at the concerts, on the back of your programs. You could even have information about AGO membership on there. Have something in there. So, because don't assume that everybody attending your event already belongs to the chapter, okay? So have information about, how do we join? Or have somebody at the table set up in front. That's even better. Karl was mentioning this too. Not only having people greeting you, but also have a table set up. Our registrar in our chapter made these beautiful name tags for all the members. So you'd come to every event, you'd put your name tag on, people would know who you are, you would check in at the table. There was registration information, all of that stuff was right there. And I was set up right in the vestibule of every concert that we did. And it takes somebody who's really dedicated to do that. But every chapter, should be able to find at least one person who could do that. And we also have unofficial opportunities where one-on-one networking after the concert, when you go out to dinner afterwards, or cocktails, or whatever it is, take that opportunity to reach out to people. Number 2, many people are just waiting to be asked, honestly. That's a big reason why a lot of people haven't joined or don't renew, is because they don't feel valued. So what can we do? Make them feel valued, because indeed they are. We need all these people's skill sets. As we've been talking, it takes a very diverse group of people to pull off all these events, large and small, with a lot of success. So it's important, be able to pick up the phone sometimes and just call these people individually. I actually had the best success with that, honestly, more than the mass emails and things, which are helpful, but also just calling people. I even would go pick up people in my car, drive them to the ATM, have their renewal forms on my dashboard. I've done that before. You do what it takes sometimes, to get people on board. Number 3, offer complimentary membership to your chapter scholarship students. And so I know many chapters do this. But again, this is a great way of keeping these kids on board. So not only are they taking lessons, but they are now members of your AGO chapter and of the AGO nationally. And you've opened that door now for them to be able to be a part of what we do. And I believe POE already has this built in for all of its participants as well. Typically, the whichever chapter is sent the child on scholarship typically pays for their membership for that year too. So, and let's see. Number 4, communicate the value of the AGO. So this is a question I get a lot for people, and they say, what does the AGO do for me? Why should I join? Or why should I renew? And that's a fair question. People are very busy. People, this costs money. It's not free. But the answer is AGO does a lot. We are still the largest platform for Oregon in the world. We are a community of people with shared interests. We are a vehicle for bringing the best in our art to the world. So that's something that's very unique to our organization because we're very specific to really help promote the organ. We help foster concert artists, educators, organ builders, composers, music publishers. We host concerts, educational events, this workshop right now. We have conventions, which are fabulous opportunities to be able to hear music and network, and they're tremendous. We provide an invaluable opportunity for networking and fellowship for organists that does not exist elsewhere. So that is the thing. So I think really sell people on the value of the AGO, because it's a fair question when somebody says, well, why should I join? And we have lots of reasons. We are very unique in our platform of being able to really further this art, which we obviously love. And so this is a great opportunity to bring other people on board. And then finally, I have offer AGO sponsored workshops to larger communities. We did talk about that somewhat, but really focus a lot, particularly on people who are beginning organists. I find in general that tends to draw in a larger crowd, at least for my experience as a dean. Beginning service playing, registration, hymn playing, improvisation, have all been very popular topics. I mean, how many people have been good pianists who were suddenly thrown on an organ bench due to whatever situation, their pastor asked them to, or something happened, and they don't know what to do. So I would say it's the delicate balance of having programs that cater to a wide variety of skill sets and interests, right? But that's also the beauty of the AGO. I mean, we can bring in Olivier Latry to play a marvelous recital, and at the same time, we can also be able to offer workshops on how to register your hymns, how to pedal, things like that. So never feel like anything is beneath you. And I think that's pretty much all I have then. So I will pass the mic back to you.
See. Laura Hedstrom, one of our district conveners, comments, the reason I became an AGO member is that the Twin Cities chapter sponsors memberships for area organ students under age 21. Nearly a decade later, and I'm still here. Oh, we're so glad you are, Laura.
Yay.
We are so glad that you are. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm just seeing what else was there. Okay, I think we've answered just about all of your questions. Let me do this if I may, and then we'll come back and we'll close. Let me see if I can share my screen and go to our website and show you where our online programming is, since we've been talking about it for so long. Okay, here we go. All right, so actually I'll take you to the home page. So this is our home page. And we have all of these tabs across the top. This is where you're gonna find the good stuff. So if you went under membership, you'd see chapter leadership toolkits. And to the right of that is a subpage on chapter leadership webinars. And it shows this one here. We'll be adding another webinar on the 20th of November. We are going to do a train the trainer webinar, the technology, AGO's technology committee is going to be doing a webinar specifically for those in your chapter. It could be chapter deans, officers who need to know how to help some of their older members who are not comfortable getting on Zoom. So there's going to be some handouts, there's going to be some diagrams, there's going to be a very robust conversation. So that'll be on the 20th of November, and we'll put that up there. But again, if we look, here's all our online programming, and Skye will put your, we want to put a link onto your recital, but we have workshops, we have organ crawls. New York City chapter has just done 3 in a series. The first one was at St. Patrick's Cathedral. They then did St. Thomas Church. They just sent the link to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. I mean, talk about wonderful organ crawls. We have recitals. Mormon Tabernacle is doing weekly recitals. Chapter recitals. I've been adding as you've been giving them. So if you don't see yours here, please send me the link and we will put these up. As well, and I know I'm scrolling down, these are the organ teaching webinars that the Committee on Continuing Education has been doing. And actually you can get all of the past, access to all of the past information. If you go over to the Education tab, you can find all of the links to the webinars and the concerts and the leadership development programs that we've had. They're all here. So here's where you can find them. And I just want to, as long as I have a captive audience here, and Skye, you mentioned about really making sure that you might have a handout or something to share at programs. We've got our new logos here. This is under our leadership toolkits. But what we're particularly excited about is we have a new membership flyer. So this is one that has been created so that you can take your chapter information and put it here. This can be sent digitally, or you can print it and use it as a handout at a concert. The only way to make this work though is you have to download it and save it, and then you'll be able to add specific information. There's probably might even be room here to add your Facebook page if you wanted. So this is a flyer that we're very thrilled to have now that I hope that you will consider using. And I'm just going to check and see if we have any last questions. I think we've answered them all. So just final thoughts. Let's go around again. Karl, any final thoughts you want to share?
Skye, I think you did a great job. And one of the things was on, this is what's going through my mind. It never hurts to ask people for money. And all I can do is say no. Our Fox Valley chapter has had for 21 years an annual program called Bach and Beyond at the Abbey. It's always the last Friday of July, and it's always at a Catholic Abbey that has a really marvelous organ. But when we make the announcements, we always have a door collection, and the collection always goes for scholarship money for kids, always. And we usually bring in about $2,000 in one night for scholarships. And it's highly successful. And we always have at least 1 or 2 kids play on the program. We usually have eight players on the program, but there's always 1 or 2 kids that got the scholarship. And it tends to increase the donations. It's also helpful that the tallest member of the chapter stands by the door with a big bucket. So great job, Skye, thank you.
Sue, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing, and that is, imagine moving to a community during this time of COVID and not knowing anyone and transferring your membership to AGO. I would ask deans to remind their chapters of what it would be like to come to a meeting for the first time and not know anyone. And think of all the things that you would like as a new person in a new chapter in a new community that would help make you feel welcome. A handshake, maybe a brochure about your chapter, invitations to sit with people, invitations to join now a virtual coffee clutch or a happy hour. we sometimes get so comfortable in our own little clique that we don't look out. You know, deans are the hub and the members are the spokes. And sometimes we stick with the hub, and we need to remember to reach out to new people. And if you hear of someone who's just come to the community in a new church position, to reach out to them and treat others as you would like to be treated.
It's so true. I've gone to a couple of chapter programs where the dean or the program coordinator might have gotten up and welcomed everyone, but did they stop and say, do we have any new members here? If so, please stand up. Do we have any non-members here? Please raise your hand. We're so glad to have you with us. And those are such simple things. But sometimes, as you said, we get in that hub and we just forget to think about some of the simplest things that can make a world of difference about whether that person wants to come back to another program. So very, very true. Skye, any last thoughts?
Well, thank you, all of you. I mean, I think these are some fantastic, hopefully you were able to take away something helpful from all of this, but the main thing, my main takeaway for you is that AGO is not on hiatus. We're not on break. You know, keep going, keep your chapter going, keep your programs going. Think positive. Try to find, as Sue said, you know, talked beautifully about the minus signs and the plus signs. Think about that we have a future ahead of us. So don't get caught up in the present day problems and whatever, because you know what every terrible event in history has in common is that it did eventually pass. So there's always something bright ahead, and use this time to reach your hugest audience ever. So that's kind of my challenge to you, is to allow this to be an opportunity to really widen your audience, not just for your chapter, but for the community at large, so that they can know just how wonderful our art and our instrument is.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming today. So many good points, so many good ideas. I think it's been a really rich discussion. And I know, Karl, did you have your hand raised?
At the bottom of the screen, it looks like we have like 9 questions.
Let's see, let me pull those up. Okay. Oh, thank you. Regarding chapter organ crawls and all the digital programming, do these chapters have someone specifically responsible for all the licensing and copyright details and permissions from performers? And then a follow-up to that, for Facebook pages, do you post videos of organists playing or voice recording with a still photo? You certainly can do that. Now, I am not an expert on the legalities of what can be streamed and what can't be streamed, but we did a wonderful webinar on that with one license, and David
Scott.
Yep, from Sela Publishing, and it is online, and actually one license has another video link there. It's about 4 minutes long, and it goes through very quickly the key points of what you should consider before you put something online. So there are resources there, and I would encourage you. And there again,
and I think that you're giving it so many chapters. If your chapter is producing a lot of its own digital programming this season, as so many are, it's worth investing in these licenses for sure. Set aside part of your programming budget this year, because chances are you're probably not spending as much on artist fees and things this year. So set aside some of that money now, this time, for streaming licenses and other copyright issues, because it is important to be aware of that, so nobody gets in trouble.
Absolutely. Well, Skye, Sue, and Karl, it was so great to be with you this afternoon and see you again. And poor Sue, who has no electricity, we're going to say our prayers that it comes on before the end of the weekend. And I want to say to everyone, stay safe, stay well, and don't forget to vote. If you do nothing else, don't forget to vote. Thank you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.